Good morning and welcome to another edition of United Way for Southeastern Michigan's What's the Word Wednesday. My name is Audrey Walker, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, reading, more specifically literacy, and what we can all do to help encourage literacy and a love of reading in our homes and communities. As a reminder, the last 10 minutes of today's conversation are reserved for questions, so please leave your questions in the Q&A box on Zoom or in the comment box on Facebook. First, I'm going to hand things over to United Way for Southeastern Michigan's President and CEO, Dr. Darian Hudson, and Senior Director of K-12 Education, Ellen Gilchrist, to talk a little bit more about the importance of literacy and our work in education here at United Way.
Thank you so much, Audrey, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Literacy is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. Many of you know that I used to be a teacher, and I was actually a fourth grade teacher. And this is that critical point where our children are no longer learning how to read, but they're reading to learn. These are critical skills that are important to a child's development, not only in school, but in life. And literacy is the foundation of knowledge and education. And right now we're at a moment where it's really critical that we do all that we can to support literacy in our own homes, in our communities, and especially as our young people are faced with tremendous learning loss due to the pandemic. March is Reading Month. It's also the month where Dr. Seuss was born. And we see this as an opportunity to educate ourselves about the reality that so many children and families do not have access to books or literacy supports. At United Way, literacy is a focus of our work every month of the year across our programs and initiatives, from increasing book access from the day children are born to working within our community schools to build libraries and learning centers. We've also distributed tens of thousands of free books to metropolitan Detroit students with our partner Scholastic over the past few years. We are so proud to have our own K-12 education work led by Ellen Gilchrist. Ellen is a lifelong educator who is passionate about urban education and has brought her expertise to us here at United Way. Ellen, we're so honored to have you on our team and looking forward to hearing just a little more about the work that you're doing and why it is so necessary that we're doing this for the community.
Thank you, Dr. Hudson. I'm so happy to be here with all of you this morning. Good morning, everyone. Our work on the K-12 education team is really about building a culture of literacy throughout our region, and we see ourselves as doing that one book at a time. Our goal is simple. We want to eliminate the barriers of access to books to create a more literacy-rich region. Our challenge, though, is that there's inequitable access to books, and that's limiting to children's potential to become proficient readers and to create this culture of literacy we're just trying to see. We need to eliminate the book deserts in our region, and that's what our work is striving to do. So, what is a book desert? Book deserts are defined as geographic areas that lack consistent access to high quality, affordable print children's books. In our region, we have Wayne County alone, only 19% of households have that magic number of books to consider them not being a book desert. That number is 100 books. And when a household has 100 or more books, it's considered to be a print-rich environment for children. In Oakland County, only 36% of households have that number, and in Macomb County, it's 34%. When you're looking at this map, those red areas have less than 10% of households meeting that number. This means we have a lot of work to do to ensure that our children have the resources they need to become curious, bright thinkers. Next slide. Thank you. Addressing book deserts matters. 61% of our region's children live in neighborhoods that lack public libraries and stores that sell books, or in homes where books are unaffordable or an unfamiliar luxury. We know that the most successful way to improve reading achievement of low-income children is to increase their access to print. And so communities that have high test achievement have several factors in common: an abundance of books, easy access to books in their community, and a large number of textbooks per child. We see our role at United Way as helping to address that by ensuring that children have that abundance of books and easy access in their communities. Lastly, we know that children growing up in homes without books are on average 3 years behind children in homes with lots of books. And that means that our job is to ensure that we make sure that all of our Alyce households have lots and lots of books. So, and the beauty of this problem is there actually is a role for everyone to play so that we can solve it quickly. At United Way, we've launched a Read United initiative this month, where we are working with over 5,000 children across 12 elementary schools in our region to ensure that they build this love of reading that we know is so essential to becoming a thriving reader. We are also launching volunteer opportunities to become a reading buddy, a mentor, and to read in schools. And lastly, we are collecting books that can be donated to children in classrooms and through community centers across our community school districts and our partner organizations. We know that reading doesn't end in March though, and that's so important to keep in mind. We have to read all year long. And so we are also asking that you think about how you can support literacy beyond the month of March. We are launching a Little Free Library initiative at United Way for Southeastern Michigan to ensure that children have access to books wherever they are in their communities. These libraries need stewards, and a steward is a volunteer who puts their time into keeping libraries clean and stocked with books and inviting places for children. We are also looking for volunteers to support our spring book fairs that are called My Home Library. We'll be in 20 elementary schools across the region. It is of no cost to children. They each get to pick out 5 books of their own to begin to build their home library. And the volunteers get to work these book fairs and get to help children select magical books that bring them joy. If you're interested, the email address to say, hey, I want to volunteer is eci@liveunitedsem.org. And from there, we will reach out to you when these opportunities are available on our volunteer portal. Thank you so much. And with that, I am so excited to introduce you to Elise Hartman. Elise has a background in public relations and has been working in education since 2011. She has taught kindergarten and leads after-school programs and summer theater. Elise is the director of education at a nonprofit organization in Detroit and is the founder of Nesting Birds Publishing, a startup boutique children's book publisher with curriculum, classes for children ages 5 to 14, and a bookmobile named Birdie. Nesting Birds Publishing is raising readers and unleashing storytellers who are the next generation of change makers. Elise, we're so excited to have you here to learn a little bit more about your work and how you are making a big impact in our region.
Good morning. Really excited to be here and share a little bit about Nesting Birds Publishing and what we're doing in our community. So we have books, curriculum, and classes. We're raising readers and unleashing storytellers. My name is Alyce Hartman. I have a background in public relations and have been an educator since 2011. I'm the director of education at a nonprofit organization in Detroit, a writer, and the founder of Nesting Birds Publishing. We are a Detroit-based startup boutique children's book publisher with curriculum, classes for kids, and a bookmobile. We're a low-profit, limited liability company, a for-profit business with a social mission committed to furthering the accomplishments of charitable and educational purposes. Our nest is in a book desert on the Lower East Side of Detroit, where children have limited access to quality books in our community. We address this literacy problem among youth innovatively and from a unique perspective. Our mission is to publish books, develop educational materials, and offer classes that are accessible and that spark creativity, nurture curiosity, and help children reach their full potential. We are raising readers and unleashing storytellers, the next generation of change makers. Children's books are full of words and imagery. They create worlds and unlock wonder. Do you remember your favorite book as a child? Mine was Are You My Mother? And I think the author was P.D. Eastman. And the fun thing about children's picture books is that they're written for both the child and the adult to enjoy. So I have some that I even enjoy reading now. Last Stop on Market Street, The Snowy Day, Dragons Love Tacos. Nesting Birds Publishing is helping to cultivate a community of readers and build rich reading environments. We are helping children grow into storytellers. Why storytellers? Storytelling is powerful, and great stories happen to those who can tell them. Storytellers are creators and visionaries, leaders and entrepreneurs. Storytellers are innovators and problem solvers. Storytellers are change makers. How are we doing this? What's in our feeder? We are publishing books for children 5 to 14 years old, and our first titles are scheduled for release in the fall of 2023. Picture books, short chapter books, and longer chapter books for older students. We are offering classes, rhythm and movement for preschoolers, theater, storytelling, writing, youth leadership, and entrepreneurship development for 5 to 14-year-olds. And we have a bookmobile, Birdie's Bookmobile. Birdie's Bookmobile, she had a tough year last year, and someone smashed all of her windows and some of her wiring was severed, but things are looking up. Summer is on its way, and she's shaking the ice off her bumper and getting ready to leave the nest soon. Our Bookmobile will help make books more accessible to our neighbors. Our stops are between Jefferson Avenue to Warren Avenue and Harding Street to Grand Boulevard. Same locations, same time, every Friday, June through October. And let us know if you are interested in having the Bookmobile visit your community, or if you would like for us to add your street or your organization to our route. Borrowing books from the Bookmobile is like borrowing books from a library. Books are checked out and returned on or before the due date, but there are no fines for late or unreturned books. We are spreading our wings and planning to scale our Bookmobile model. We're enlarging our footprint soon and providing books to other communities in Detroit. So we're also working on an app to help make it easier for people to locate us. And you can partner with us by stewarding a little free library. We're working with neighbors and community leaders and organizations to install little free libraries along our stops and want to extend libraries outside of our route and zip code. Please let us know if you're interested in stewarding a little free library. You can also support us by purchasing a book at 27th Letter Books. You can round your purchase up to the nearest dollar, and proceeds support book purchases for our Bookmobile. 27th Letter Books is located at 3546 Michigan Avenue in Detroit. And we also take book donations. We need lots of books in our storehouse. Learn more. You can join us every Saturday for story time virtually at 9 a.m. and in person at 10 a.m. at 27th Letter Books. Bedtime Stories with Birdie is launching virtually in April. We have in-person and virtual classes for kids preschool to age 14, and our summer schedule will be available soon. So please visit our website for more information, nestingbirdspublishing.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Alyce and Ellen. Thank you so much for your insight and passion and work in education and literacy. Lots of exciting things happening in our community because of both of you. We are going to begin our Q&A session now. So if you've not done so, please put your questions in the comment box on Facebook or the Q&A box on Zoom. So we've got a couple of questions here. But first I have a question for you, Alyce. Why is it so important to you? What was the spark? What was the thing that made you say, I need to have this publication company. We need to have this Birdie's Bookmobile, which I'm glad to hear has, shaking off the winter like we all are. But what was the thing that kind of started this all for you?
Well, it probably started as a child where my mother helped cultivate in me a love of reading. So I always was surrounded by lots of children's books. My mom and I always read together. And then that led to me becoming a writer. And so I've written some books that I will be publishing through the publishing company and live in the 48214. So I'm on the Lower East Side of Detroit, and notice that we do not have access to the books that I would like for kids to have access to. They're not readily available. So as both Ellen and I talked about, we live in a book desert. So I think that one of the ways that I can help contribute is with the Bookmobile. And the Bookmobile is really just making the books accessible to the kids in the community and soon outside of this community as well.
That's great. And kind of focusing on the little free library, either Ellen or Alyce, if you want to talk about this, but what if my neighborhood doesn't have one? How do I get one, or how can I install one myself? I know, Ellen, you mentioned there are some volunteering efforts around it. Same thing, Alyce, you had mentioned that, but how do I get one in my neighborhood?
Take the first stab at it.
Yeah.
So I know Elise is really working to make sure that those little free libraries are along the Bookmobile path so that children have access to books even when the Bookmobile is not making its way through the community. On our end, we are really looking at those areas where we see intense amounts of read and where we know that we have the most need for books. From there, every year we'll be expanding the number of little free libraries that are available. So if you've noticed there's nothing available in my neighborhood because there's no library and there's no bookstore and there's nothing that is accessible for children, send an email and we're happy to have a conversation and see what's possible. And if not now, down the road, this is also a great opportunity to partner with a local business in your community and to say, hey, we need access to books. We know how important this is for children. Would you consider allowing a little free library in front of your business, or would you sponsor it in maybe a park and to work with your local government? And that's an area that we would love to give folks the language to be able to make that ask and then help them think about how you go about stewarding it and taking care of it.
That's great. Alyce, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, right now we're just adding them, as Ellen said, on our route. So they will be standing in place for us when we can't be there. And when the bus is not in operation, we'll be actually, filling the books or the little free libraries. So we'll make sure that those are well stocked as well.
That's great. We have talked a little bit about volunteering as well. And I'm just curious here, what is one of the easiest ways to get involved with literacy efforts as a volunteer or at my local school? Like, what are some ways that could be real easy for someone to participate?
And getting involved with literacy efforts?
Yeah.
Well, there's several ways. I think one of the primary ways is you can contact a local elementary school. You can contact organizations like MAC Development that offer tutoring programs, and then you can support organizations that are providing services like we are in the community as well, providing book donations. You can become a reading buddy, just even in your community, on your porch with some of the kids in your community. So there's several ways that neighbors can support literacy within their community.
To add to what Elise said, there are organizations doing great work every day around this region, working to support children. Two that I'll share here that would offer a lot of opportunity to be a reading buddy or to be a mentor to children. Are SOAR Detroit, which is working to do tutoring in schools with children, and Brilliant Detroit that allows you to be a reading buddy virtually for now with children in the city. And so these are opportunities to help expose children to language. And we know that when children read for that magic 20 minutes a day, it not only helps them become proficient readers, it builds their vocabulary. As Dr. Hudson said at the beginning, once kids get that spark, it opens a world for them, right? They're not confined by the borders of their neighborhood anymore, and they can learn about the world, past and present, and begin to really imagine a different future. And so when you find ways to encourage a child to love to read, whether that is reading a book that you love with them, asking them what they're reading, encouraging them to look at different types of print and book, It doesn't just have to be your traditional children's book or novel. They can read maps and magazines and newspapers and comics, and there's reading all around them. And when you show that to a child, even if that's just talking to the kids that you see sort of standing around that little free library and asking them what they see and what's exciting them, you're engaging them in conversation about reading. You're showing them that you care, and you're showing them that it's important.
And I'd like to add too, see if there's opportunities to volunteer at a DPSCD library at a school, because I know that there are needs at the schools to have their libraries managed and supported. So there are some opportunities there too, I'm sure.
Great. And what other resources are there for parents or adults, or what is, maybe one tip you could share that as an adult or a parent that you could do to help cultivate that love of reading in your own household or with children in your life that is, something that you find that's just something easy but very impactful.
Read. Just read with your child and allow them to, and the interesting thing about children's picture books is that they're written for or with the adult and the child in mind. So they're written for the parent to enjoy reading to the child, or the grandmother or the sibling to enjoy reading to the child, and for the child to enjoy listening to. And so with a picture book, the story is told in both words and in imagery. So you can sit with your child, and even before a child understands words, and just let the child feel the book and touch the book and open the book and point out the colors and the pictures, and then just begin to read and be consistent. And I think it's important to just make sure that parents and grandparents and aunties and anybody who, with the child, just make sure that you're reading consistently with them. And I believe that that is how you will cultivate and foster that love of reading.
Mm-hmm.
I think the consistency piece is so important. And sometimes it's daunting as a parent, and you have school and dinner and after school activities and work, and you're running around and you're thinking, how do I find this time to be consistent? And so the first thing I would say is start small. You can find 5 minutes and add and slowly change that to 10, and then it becomes 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be all at once. So if you have 10 minutes in the evening before you put your child to bed, and then you're working again. I like to use dinner time with my older children to say, while I'm making dinner, why don't you sit somewhere cozy and read? And that's a really important time for them to just decompress and get sort of lost in their book. And as a parent, it also gives them a little bit of quiet time to get dinner on the table for them. So I think that consistency in schedule and routine, so that they know at this time I should be thinking about books. Mm-hmm. The other piece is really, finding books. And so for so many families, if you look at that book desert map we showed, we already know they don't have access to books. And so it's really hard to think about finding books for your child to read, or for you to read with your child for 20 minutes each day. And so I would say that thinking about your libraries and how you can visit libraries, you can request books online, and you can just drive through and pick them up, so you don't have to go inside and find them and sort of have that daunting task of selecting books. While paper and tactile texture is important, having kids read books online is okay too. That is a fine option, and there are plenty of online platforms such as Epic or Story Online that allow children to access books for free. Mm-hmm. And so thinking about bringing those resources and slowly but some consistency, so that kids can expect that time, is really valuable.
Thank you. And for donating, I know we talked a little bit about providing books, donating books to the little libraries, to the Bookmobile. Is there a specific list of books that we should be looking at that's provided in both instances, that so we know we're getting, I don't want to say the right information, but just a nice selection of books that are going to be impactful for children to be reading and fun and all of the things?
Yes, and so Elise joined in here with me, but one of the things that's so important with books is that they are mirrors and windows. And so children need to be able to see themselves in their stories, and they need to be able to see the world. Yet we know that most books are skewed, right? 70% of books either represent animals or young white characters. And we know that that is not representative of our diverse, beautiful, rich region. And so we have worked hard at United Way to cultivate a list of potential book titles that you can access through our volunteer portal. And I know that that is dear to Elise's heart as well. And so she works really hard to curate, and I'll let her talk a little bit about that list. But so I'm kicking over to you, to Elise, to add.
Yeah, so we are curating a list that is diverse and actually have a list of books that people could purchase from Amazon or at 27th Letter Books as well. So that's on our website. So you could go to our website and can find that list there. So that is probably the easiest way for people to find books that we've already kind of looked at and have determined that these would be great adds to the Bookmobile if they wanted to make donations that way. And then we also take used book donations as well. So if you have children's books at home that are appropriate for children between the ages of 3 to 14, although we say 5 to 14, we still do serve the preschool market as well. We would be happy to take those and look at them and see if they're appropriate for us, and put them in our Bookmobile as well.
That's great. And that's what I was thinking of the list. It just kind of helps to get a good idea of what you're looking for, or what we want to, put out into the community that's going to be helpful and thoughtful for all children in our community as well. So, and I love that analogy of mirrors and windows. It's so important to think about when we're all learning and reading, especially to our children and our community. So I want to thank both of you so much for coming today. I could talk about reading and literacy all day. I'm sure you could too. So we really appreciate everything you've been able to share with us. And I'm excited to volunteer and explore more of the links that we shared with today. And so I really appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hudson right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. And again, thank you so much, Elise and Ellen. Your passion is evident, and it's just refreshing to be surrounded by so many people who understand the importance of literacy and reading to our young people. And it's also important for adults. There was a question in our chat about the importance of bookstores. And I encourage you, if you don't know of any bookstores in your neighborhood, you can always call 211. We talk about 211 as a 24/7 service for when you're in crisis, but it is also a resource aggregator where you can call for any types of needs that you have. I'm someone who loves bookstores. I kind of get lost when I go into a bookstore because you might be going for one particular book, but then as you start to walk around, you start to see other things that interest you, whether it's cooking or yoga or Pilates or astrology, and it's just endless. And it's important that you have access to those things. Online is great. Kindles are great. iPhones are great, but there's nothing like being able to actually walk through aisles and touch books and see things that interest you. And that's just as important for adults as it is for young people. So I just had to make that plug. And if we don't have enough bookstores in our neighborhoods, which I personally don't think we do, I think we just need to be more vocal about it. All of us have been asking questions about this today and speaking about our own experiences. So the only way that changes is if we start to use our voices to make that change happen. So I thank everyone for being here today. I did want to just remind everyone, if you need help of other types, with this rental assistance, or if you're looking for diapers, or if you need transportation, please call 211. Our call center is open 24/7. You can also go to unitedwaysem.org/211 to get the help that you need. We are also still coordinating with the state of Michigan to assist with vaccine scheduling. So if you are looking to get your vaccine, you can also go to michigan.gov/COVID vaccine for help. Also wanted to remind everyone that next week we will be joined by Mary Townley of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to talk about the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund, which is a new fund available to help homeowners who are struggling with affording their homes, including property taxes and mortgage payments. So to see our previous town halls and more upcoming topics, please visit unitedwaysem.org/virtual town halls. And the website is also included in the chat box. And so we hope to see you next week for this important topic. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you all are well, that you continue to stay safe and live united.